It's time for a way too early guess as to what the Red Sox offseason may look like. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. With the Red Sox at this point in the season feeling like they are as far away from the playoffs as they've been all year, it feels like a good time to start talking about what next season may look like. Now, obviously, there is still a long ways to go until we get to the offseason, so this is just going to be a preliminary guess as to what the Red Sox may end up doing. We're going to be taking a look today at some possible extensions, some possible free agents, and also some possible trades the Red Sox may make as well. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so obviously the biggest factor as to what the Red Sox end up doing this offseason has to do with the money John Henry and his company are willing to shell out. Now, that is a gigantic question mark considering the last couple of seasons they haven't been willing to shell out as much as we would hope. But even if the Red Sox are hamstrung by some sort of budget, which I'm going to assume that they will be hamstrung with a budget this offseason, there's still a pretty decent amount of wiggle room to play around with here. The Red Sox currently have about $103 million going into 2025 before they hit the luxury tax. Now, that is obviously before all the arbitration cases are settled, and there's going to be a lot of them this year. So let's assume that the overall budget the Red Sox have is that first luxury tax threshold. Let's assume that arbitration is going to cost them a pretty penny, and let's say they have right around $80 million to spend coming into 2025. That's a pretty decent amount of room still, and I think there's one thing that the Red Sox can start taking advantage of because they did not make the postseason, and that is the ability to extend the current players on their team. I do think the Red Sox are going to continue to invest in the young core. Worked out with, say, Don Rafaela this year. Brian Bale, he's gone through his bumps, but I still think that's going to end up looking like a solid contract. And I think they continue that. In my opinion, there are three guys who I think are at the top of everyone's list when it comes to extensions, and in no particular order, that's Tanner Houck, Jarren Duran, and Triston Casas. So, in my opinion, now most likely probably not playing games in October. This gives them an opportunity to sit down with these guys before the craziness of the offseason begins and try and hammer something home. Now, of those three, Triston Casas, in my opinion, is probably the biggest deal to get done. He's the youngest player. He's going to still be pretty young once he hits free agency. This is a guy that you should probably try and lock down and pick up some of those free agent years, really make him a staple of the 2024 Red Sox. So my official prediction, before we even get into the actual offseason predictions, is that the Red Sox get two deals done. The first one being Triston Casas on like a 8-year with a couple of team options somewhere in there, deal worth around, I would say, $180-200 million. I'm not going to try and get too into the details as to how much these contracts are going to cost, so I'm just going to lay out who I think ends up getting signed. And I also think they get a deal done with Tanner Houck, but this isn't a super long-term contract. This is a contract that simply voids arbitration until he reaches free agency. Maybe they throw in a player option as well. Corbin, why not Jarren Duran? Because Jarren Duran is due for a pretty decent payday. He's going into his first year of arbitration. This is a guy who is most likely going to get a pretty decent amount of money with the season he's had. I don't think he settles for an arbitration deal. I don't think the Red Sox are going to be comfortable giving him a 7-8 year deal and signing him till he's 33, 34. So I don't think they end up meeting in the middle somewhere for Jarren Duran arbitration, but I do think they do get Tanner Houck and Triston Casas done. Okay, so now we've made our way through October. We're into November. The World Series just ended. Another year of the Red Sox not participating. What happens next? Well, I think the obvious place to start is with free agents, because free agency is going to kick off basically immediately after the World Series ends. And for, I think, most fans, the clear and obvious first priority on the open market is getting themselves a legitimate frontline starting pitcher. And there are a few pretty obvious options here for the Boston Red Sox, and guys that I think as Red Sox fans we want them to target, with the biggest name being Corbin Burnes. Now, I know Corbin Burnes is having a bit of a rough second half, but if a rough second half still equates to a 3.19 ERA and a 367 FIP, I would say that might be worth the investment. We know he's looking for an 8-year deal, which is a lot. That would sign him through his 38-year season, but at the same time, too, this is a guy who has consistently been one of the best pitchers in baseball. The Red Sox would be absolutely stupid to not consider consider Corbin Burnes as a possible addition to this Red Sox team. This should be the guy the Red Sox target. However, there are some other options if the Red Sox, which more than likely don't want to spend a ton of money. That would be Max Fried, Jack Flaherty, who are both having really solid seasons. Guys possibly coming back from injury. Walker Buehler, who's been coming back from injury this whole year. And Shane Bieber, who should be ready for next year as well. Those are names that I would also love to see the Red Sox have a conversation with. But ultimately, I do think they settle on one. And as much as I would love to say that one person's going to be Corbin Burnes, and he's definitely going to be someone we are going to be campaigning for the Red Sox to sign once the offseason begins. More realistically, I think the Red Sox end up with a guy like Max Fried, because Max Fried has consistently been a really solid frontline starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves for a few years now. He has experience going full seasons. He does have an injury history, but at this point in free agency, I think you're looking at every single person having some sort of injury history that you could be a bit concerned about. He's a left-handed starting pitcher that pretty comfortably fits in at the top of this Red Sox rotation, both things that the Red Sox really need. So my official way too early prediction for free agency when it comes to starting pitchers is that the Red Sox end up signing Max Fried to a 4-year deal worth around $22-23 million a year with some incentives in there. Again, I have no idea what the contracts are going to look like, but I'm going to throw my guesses out there anyways. Sorry for the interruption, folks. I just wanted to take a second and say if you're enjoying this video, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button. We talk Sox every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton. It's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for taking a second and doing so. Again, I apologize for the interruption. Let's get back to the video. In terms of the position player side of things, I gotta be honest with you, my prediction is that they're not gonna do a whole lot. And that's not because there aren't really good options on the market. Obviously, Juan Soto is the highlight of any free agent class that we can take a look at. But at the same time, too, do you really see the Red Sox shelling out $500+ million for Juan Soto? Which, I mean, it really sucks. It's unfortunate we have to say that, but I do think that is reality. Some other names that could be interesting additions to this Red Sox team are guys like Pete Alonso, Teoscar Hernandez, or Alex Bregman. But I think at the same time, too, the Red Sox are going to lean pretty heavily on the young core of this Red Sox team. And I think that's going to shine a lot when it comes to position players. I think when you're looking at what do the Red Sox need, well, they need a consistent right-handed bat. I think they try and get that from guys like more experienced, say, Don Rafaela, a hopefully healthy Trevor Story, and then an influx of players coming up from the minor leagues. Guys like Christian Campbell, guys like Vaughn Grissom, who could be a contact right-handed bat for you, and then try and figure it out with some of these utility players as well, a Romy Gonzalez, a Nick Sogard, stuff like that. So they do have some depth when it comes to right-handed bats, and I think that's really the biggest thing the Red Sox are missing. They do obviously need to figure out their defense as well, but I think that comes with getting some of these young players up here. So what you're looking at is most likely solving both of those problems with internal options. So I don't really think I'm going to guess anyone for the position player side of things. I think for the Red Sox, what they're going to be focusing on in 2025 is going to be their pitching. And speaking of pitching, we also have to take a look at the bullpen. The Red Sox simply need to do something with their bullpen going into 2025. It has been absolutely atrocious in the second half of this season. 6.30 ERA in the second half with 15 blown saves is absolutely disgusting. If the Red Sox want to go anywhere in 2025, it's going to have to start with getting a better bullpen. However, there are some interesting things going on with this bullpen in 2025. You're obviously most likely not going to re-sign Kenley Jansen. I would assume you're probably not going to re-sign Chris Martin. You're also getting Liam Hendriks back into this bullpen, and he basically has a new arm, right? We'll see how that goes. Michael Fulmer is a guy that you signed this offseason to help you in 25. If you do end up doing what you are supposed to do, which is get at the bare minimum one legitimate starting pitcher, I think most people would like to see 2 starting pitchers added to this rotation. Well, then now you're pushing guys who were at one point really great bullpen pieces for you back into the bullpen. My guess is that Whitlock isn't in the rotation next year, and I do think it's possible, like they do, that also could possibly mean a guy like Cutter Crawford ends up back in the bullpen, as well as guys like Richard Fitz or Quinn Priester ending up in a more bullpen role. So your bullpen naturally may end up up getting a bit bolstered compared to what it is this season, but there is one guy who I think I really want the Red Sox to focus on coming into 2025, and that is AJ Minter of the Atlanta Braves. This is a left-handed bullpen arm who has been absolutely fantastic for the last few seasons, and the Red Sox haven't really had a legitimate left-handed reliever for a while. This season, you relied on Bernardino until he broke down. Cam Boozer and Bailey Horn were the other two lefties that you relied on, and those guys were fine, but they weren't that super high leverage, we need a lockdown lefty right now type guy. AJ Minter has been that for a few seasons now. And to be honest with you, it's probably going to be fairly expensive. I think this is absolutely someone that the Red Sox are going to have to shell out some money for, but in my opinion, it's absolutely worth it. So my official prediction for the Red Sox bullpen is that maybe we see a couple of minor trades here to try and get some other guys in here outside of like Greg Weiser, try and replace that stuff. Josh Winkowski, try and replace him a little bit. My official free agent prediction is that they end up going with AJ Minter. They sign him to a 3-year deal, and it's going to be worth close to $10 million a season. So my free agent picks here for the Red Sox, again, this is preliminary. There's more to come on these, is Max Fried and AJ Minter. We're really trying to rob the Braves here of all their free agents, but we also have to talk about some trades as well. Trading is going to be a really weird one to predict because the overall consensus is that now is the time for the Red Sox to make a legitimately big impact trade for this team. Your farm system, position player-wise, is in the best place it's been since, I don't know, the Mookie Betts in the farm system era. It has been a while since the Red Sox have looked this good with their farm system, and you want to be able to capitalize on that before they end up either busting or you end up with a problem that you just simply have too many players and not enough spots. But at the same time, too, there's a chance that the Red Sox find a way to fit all of this talent that is coming up through the minor league system on their major league club without having to trade anyone away. It could go one of two ways. If they do end up making a big trade, in my opinion, I think most people's opinions, it's going to have to be for a controllable starting pitcher, which immediately leads me to the Seattle Mariners. And there are two options here, in my opinion, that I could see the Red Sox going for. I would love to get George Kirby or Logan Gilbert, but unless you're willing to put Duran and a top 5 prospect on the board for them, I don't think that's going to happen. I think guys like Luis Castillo, who is a proven veteran arm, who is under control for a little bit because of a contract, who's not going to cost as much as a Gilbert or a Kirby, could be a really interesting addition to this team. I also like the idea of a Brian Wu, who would still be pretty expensive and who would still cost a pretty big name on the Boston Red Sox, but is a controllable young starting pitcher who has been absolutely ridiculous this season and poised to only get better as he continues to grow. Those are the two names I would look for if the Red Sox want to make a big move. If the Red Sox do want to try and hold on to as many prospects as humanly possible, in my opinion, the only way to do that is to, unfortunately, trade Masataka Yoshida. I don't like that idea, but what trading Masa does is essentially open up that DH spot for you. Now, in terms of who the Red Sox would trade Masa for, you're not going to get much for him, right? You maybe get a couple of high lottery type ticket AA players, but it's mostly just a salary dump and a opening of a roster spot because the DH being open does allow you to cycle in guys like Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer on this roster without having to trade anyone away. There's a way that you could fit all of these guys by simply opening up that DH position. Honestly, I think trade should be its own separate video. We could go over a whole lot of ideas for these trades, so let me know in the comment section down below if you want a part 2 for these trades, and let me know what you think of my way too early predictions of what the Red Sox are going to do this offseason. Would you be satisfied with a couple of extensions here, locking up the core, getting Max Fried, getting AJ Minter, and making a trade that would either allow you to infuse this team with high-value prospects or utilize those high-value prospects for another starting pitcher? Let me know all your thoughts on my way too early predictions in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps it out a ton. Best way to let me know you enjoy the content. Don't forget, you can always get these episodes in podcast form if you want to listen instead of watch. All you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for taking a second and clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.